Okay, so can I have your first and last name and please explain the meaning behind your first name?
So my name is Xzavier V. Simon, and the name was given to me by a group of friends and students in 2015 as sort of a part of a African tradition of the community, giving a person who they love and respect in the community, giving and bestowing a name upon them that they feel represents who they are at that particular point in their life. And so although Xavier is not my birth name, it is a name that was bestowed upon me by my community in grand faith that at the time I would lead this new age school that we were building.
So, okay, let's start with the new age school that you are building. And then if you could backpedal a little bit and
Mhm.
take me to where you grew up and then where you went to school, and then take me to how you got into journalism.
Ooh, okay, that's a long and varied story. So I grew up originally, I was born and raised in Flint, Michigan, but I grew up in the Beecher community, which is a small little cul-de-sac smash between Mount Morris Township and Flint Township. And we always joke about how um depending on what is happening in the district and in the community, either Mount Morris Township will claim us or Flint Township will claim us. So it's one of those things. And so I went to Beecher schools all my life. I graduated from Beecher schools in 2007. I eventually ended up going to the University of Michigan Flint, majoring in, which is going to be funny and add to this sort of, well, how did you get here in this moment in your life? I went to school initially for Japanese because I'm a huge fan of Asian culture. I watch anime, I play video games, I love K-pop, just the whole nine yards of it all. But then I met a friend and she told me about wonderful opportunities for Black men in education. And so I switched my major from Japanese and English to elementary education, which is eventually what I got my degree in. During that time, I went around the city, Genesee County, basically teaching at after school programs, pre college programs, nonprofits, and things of that nature until I recognized that education, at least how it was done and prescribed, especially for African children, was not what I wanted to be a part of. I felt that there were way better people who could teach a classroom of students than I could. I recognized that my strength was in that one-to-one or small group setting where we could have, actual life conversations and things like that. Another nickname that I have sort of assumed over the years is called the counselor because people and students would always come to me telling me about their problems and just how my life sort of coalesces and how phantasmal it is. I find myself in positions like that to be able to assist and help people navigate through particular moments in their life. So I ended up leaving education and I ended up turning my focus to writing. I was writing since I was 9 years old. That's when my mother gave me my first journal. And I've been journaling ever since. And I had plans of wanting to be an author, but I had never known anybody to write a book. So I couldn't fathom writing a book until a good friend of mine was turning her doctoral thesis into a book. And I sat right up under her. And that's when I was like, I know how to write a book now. And so I turned, and I'm embarrassed to say because I'm really embarrassed about that first book because I'm like, ooh, that's some bad writing in that first book. But I turned my journal entries and just some short story excerpts that I wrote about me and my relationship with my ex into a book. And so I wrote my first book about my relationship with him and driving back and forth to Lansing every weekend. And people loved it. I sold a lot of books and I said, wow, this is really what I want to do. Well, I self published it. And then I said, this is what I want to do. And so I left everything and just started doing books. before me and a friend started a nonprofit. So this goes into like that new age education. So she was in education, I was in education. We recognized that there was a need for a different form of education, especially for children here in Genesee County and Flint, Michigan, and specifically for African and Hispanic children. And so we took meditation, or now it's called mindfulness. It wasn't called mindfulness back then in those days. It was just called meditation. So we took meditation, we took visualization, we took a lot of spiritual components, a lot of African ancestry, those traditions, and sort of built a nonprofit around these things and took that into the schools to be able to give students a better way to focus and listen to their emotions, listen to their gut feelings, find their inner light, all that kind of stuff. And this was between 2013 and 2015 is when we started that nonprofit. So we went around the schools and did that. We held conferences. We were a part of conferences at the University of Michigan Flint. It was just a phenomenal time. And then I left that. And then 2015 is when I transitioned into being an author and released my first book. And from there, ended up traveling around the country for a couple years, because I was trying to find myself and figure out what it was that I wanted to do. I ended up at Georgetown University, which I didn't even know what Georgetown was. I taught there for 2 summers under a pre-college program, which was a phenomenal experience. Like, I love talking about that experience and time of my life because it was so fun. It was so fresh and so new. And I met kids from all over the world and people from all over the world. It was just amazing. And so I traveled around some more, released some more books, ended up coming back to Flint. Um, I was looking for a job. So that's how I got into journalism was I was looking for a job, and I was here in Flint in Beecher for 6 months. I was looking for a job, 6 months, and didn't find anything. Was getting interviews, was sending applications every day, and just wasn't getting anything. It was a very demoralizing moment in my life because I'm like, I know I have all these skills. I know I can bring something to the table, and just nothing was happening. So I get in my mind, in the spirit of how African people have done in this country for years, we just build our own things and build our own enterprises. And so what happened was I was working with Black Student Union at U of M Flint, and I was going to create a newsletter for them. Well, that didn't fall through. And so I ended up having a conversation with a former student of mine, and I asked him, I said, well, what's going on with the LGBTQ plus population here in Flint? And so we had that discussion, and I went home and I said, what can I do to give voice and give agency and give community to the community that I'm a part of? And so with that, I ended up creating a magazine, which is still the only queer magazine in Flint or in Genesee County at this moment, called The Modern Queer. And this is a magazine that particularly focus on queer people of color. So I've interviewed Black people, I've interviewed Latinx people, I've interviewed Asian people, and I hope to continue that progress. And it started off very small, and then it just blew up. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the amount of support that I received from doing that, and the amount of love and time and effort that people have put into that. And I shout out to everybody who even agreed to be interviewed for that, because it was a huge risk putting your life out there, especially in this political climate. So that kind of got me started on the journalism path, or creating a magazine, interviewing people, designing the magazine. And mind you, I did all of this with no money. No money at all. Just the internet is there with a plethora of free resources that you can utilize. And so I did that. That blew up. And then one night while I was still job searching, I found that Flint Side magazine here in the city was looking for freelance writers. And I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, this is it, this is it, this is it. And so I packaged literally everything that I have ever done writing wise and sent it off to the managing editor at the time. She loved it. She gave me my first assignment, which I thought was like a little trial period. She was just trying to figure out how I write and who I am and stuff like that. And come to find out I was already hired and didn't even know I was hired. So I was like, well, I wish you would have told me that. So that just blew up, to what it is now over time. I initially started talking with people who entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. So between the ages of 18 to 30 is the first people that I started interviewing. And when I wrote those stories blew up. I mean, literally blew up. Like it, I knew the power of the written word, but I didn't know until those articles just sort of spread throughout the city. And I was just like, wow, look at that. That's incredible. So I had took some time off from Flint side to focus squarely on the modern queer because that was requiring so much of my attention. And then I was talking to a friend because I went to see Flint side. I was talking to a friend. I logged onto the website just to find out what they had been up to. And I saw this old photo of a friend that I had, or a music artist that I had been following here in the city for a while. And I was like, that's not what he looks like currently. And so the new managing editor at the time had emailed me asking me if I wanted to come back and write for Flint Side, that I could. And so I took that opportunity. I said, hey, okay, I'm re-interested in this. I wanna change this. I want to continue to change the narrative about what is happening here in the city, for its residents across the board. And that kicked off me interviewing another student of mine who is doing dance here in the city. And then I was like, hey, I know that guy who the photo is, but that's not what he looks like. We should do a photo about this guy. And he was like, oh, well, he's a part of this agency and he knows this person and they're under the same talent agency. And my editor said, see if you can interview both. And so those two people ended up being John Connor and Ace Gabbana. And those were my first two music articles. And it was such a sort of, this is one of the moments in my life where everything is sort of phantasmal, right? So this is, just to put a time frame on it. So this is 2020. This is about October, November 2020, where I started recording music, writing about music. So I got hired originally at Flintside December 2019. And then I worked from December 2019 to February 2020. And then I took all that time off and came back around October, November of 2020. Um, and just to add even more time frame, so I left Flint in 2017 and returned in 2019. So that was that whole journey of me at Georgetown and just traveling and bopping all over the country. So when I interviewed John Connor and Ace Gabbana, it was at such a moment because nobody was really interviewing music artists in the city. By this time, the pandemic was in full effect and Flint culture and Flint music was blowing up on a global scale. Two big artists that did that was a guy named Rio, the Young OG, and I can give you the spelling for that later, and another guy named YNJ. The two of them together and the collective that they were a part of, due to the pandemic and due to the incline in social media, just sort of blew up and broke the glass ceiling that had been over Flint for years, for decades even. And so there was this opportunity for music artists and entrepreneurs to really become a part of the global stage just right here from Flint. And so nobody was covering that. And so again, talk about a phantasmal moment where it was just like, boom, here I go. Let me use my skills and my opportunity to really bring and shed light upon that. And at that time, specifically relating to John Connor, he had just left Aftermath Records with Dr. Dre. Nobody, he was doing interviews, but nobody was really asking him what was his life like after aftermath. And so, and nobody in the city was trying to find him. And so when the picture came out, I think I sent you the picture of me and him interviewing each other, really, because it was really just a conversation. It blew up and everybody was like, oh my God, how did you get to interview John Connor? Oh my God. And they read the article and it was shared all across social media. And it was sort of a 1-2 punch with him and Ace Gabbana. And literally overnight, I became the music journalist or the arts and culture journalist of Flint, Michigan, because it just spiraled from there. I just kept interviewing more and more musicians, more and more entrepreneurs, more and more creative artists. The articles kept getting spread, and my editor would always joke with me. He's like, "Man, everybody wants an Xzavier article. Everybody is calling me, asking me, emailing me for an Xzavier article." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, I just go and interview and come home and sit in front of this computer screen and just, type away. So that's that.
Well, let me tell you, I was like, okay, I started this book, Flo in Flynn Town, gosh, a year and a half ago or so. And then but I had been trying to get a hold of John Connor for years previous for the documentary film
Oh
Freedom
wow,
Movement.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and then people were saying, contact Flint Powers Catholic because he went there. I went there also. I grew up in Flint, and so
Oh
I'm like,
wow, this is
okay, I'm
truly
going.
a full circle moment.
Yeah. And so COVID happened, and then I
Mhm.
was able to contact and interview people who I wasn't able to talk to the previous couple of years for the film. So that's the silver lining. But I have been following your writing so closely, and I believe that your article like contributed to me. Okay, keep on trying, John Connor. And
Mm.
so then I was like, okay, was able to get that interview. I still, I want to interview Ace Gabbana, but really I was digging in and opening up the links to all of your writings for the Flint side alone. And it was taking me to different people. And
Mhm.
one of your articles led me to interview Shemi. So,
Ah, yes, 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 yes.
so I was happy to see that he's on your list of
Yes,
top 10 best rappers.
yes.
But I don't know any of these other individuals. So I find that you are a great resource, and I am just like, wow, you've only been doing this for a very short period of time. Okay, so you're inspiring me in so many ways as a aspiring music writer and as an aspiring author, because you have written how many books now?
Like I had to look over a 7, 8 now.
Oh, and you self-publish them,
Mhm.
as you mentioned. Okay, because I was on Amazon and I saw your list of books there, and then I was reading your bio on your magazine site, which is beautiful, by the way. Are you
Thank you.
are you the web designer of that site?
Yeah, so like the host is Squarespace, and so I go through and just format and design and put everything up. Like literally, I do a lot of things by myself because I don't have a lot of money to hire people, and so I'm thankfully I love being creative and I'm very tech savvy. So if I take a couple days to learn a system, like I can figure it out, and everything is just trial and error. So yeah, I do everything.
Wow, the visuals are stunning and the design is very clean. And so
Yes.
that's great. But I want to go back to this original interview with John Connor and
Mhm.
Ace Cabana. So which one is your friend and which one is your student?
So neither one of them,
Oh,
right? So my student was who I wrote before them. His name is
Oh,
Jesse Davis of Him,
okay.
Her Dance. So that was my
Okay.
student. And
Okay.
I was on the phone with a friend and we saw a photo of Ace Cabana because I have
Oh,
been following
okay.
Ace Cabana's career for a while now.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I would run into him every so often and I'm like, and we follow each other on social media. So the photo that was up on Flint's side
Uh-huh.
was taken back in 2014, 2015, I do believe. And he had this afro. And I'm like, he has dreads now and way more facial hair and tattoos. And I was just like, he looks totally different. Like, we got to change that. Like, that's not accurate representation.
Right. It's an evolution of him. So you
Hmm.
have him listed as
Yes.
the best rapper in
My
Flint.
top one, my number one.
Why?
I feel like, and I mentioned this a bit in his article, I feel like there's a spirit and a presence about him that is incredibly unique from everybody in this city. And I couldn't tell you, it's just something that I recognize in my own spirit. It's just like there's something about him that makes him a cut above the rest. And I know he's going to be something great and do phenomenal things, not just for Flint, but the world, especially through the vehicle of music. I chose him for number one because, just listening to his evolution musically, right? Like, he believe he started doing music when he was in his early teens. And so, just to see him become more confident and to see him, be able to access different aspects of his life and who he is and bring that to his records and to his singles and albums and things like that. And just, what he represents, it's no, what is the word I want to look for? It shouldn't be taken lightly that the Flint Local 432, when they were doing their 40 years of hip hop celebration, had him plastered on the billboard downtown. You know what I mean? And thankfully, with his experiences with John Connor, being under the tutelage of John Connor, and I told Connor this, I said, hey, the relationship that you have with Ace, to me, is very reminiscent of the relationship you had with Dr. Dre. I'm like, it's just continuing that lineage of taking somebody up under your wing and giving them the knowledge and know-how to be able to move through a very volatile and hostile industry. And I think, that as well, because Ace got that opportunity, adds to this presence. Because in my book that I released with all my articles and things like that, I in his excerpt that I talk about, it was sort of a passing of the torch that he got to be where he is, because it starts from John Connor, and then it goes to another guy named David Aaron, and then it goes to another guy named Anthony Stoner, and all of these people just sort of was supposed to be the next big Flint rap thing. And you could say in a real sort of way, like the torch just kept getting passed until, it got to Ace and it stuck with him. And that he just sort of came full circle again with John Connor. It was just like, wow. But really why he's my number one is everybody in the city and the world is waiting on him to drop his forthcoming album titled Moonwater. We're all waiting for it. And I was so thankful and appreciative that I got a first listen at this very mythical album that nobody has heard. And it was incredible. It was incredible. A sound that this city has never heard before. Just his delivery, just the beats, the guests that he has on the album, just how their artistry adds to his, the poetry that is on it, just the different elements that make this a cohesive project it blew my mind. I was like, Flint has never seen something like this. Flint has never had a project that ranges so many genres, that ranges so many things that he's talking about. It's just incredible, and I really can't wait for everybody to hear the album because it is insanely good, insanely good.
So when is it going to drop?
We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Like it's the mythical album of Flint right now. We just you have to ask him. Like ask him and Connor, because even I don't know when it's gonna release.
So, interestingly, you have John Connor as your top music artist from Flint, but you don't have him on your best rapper list.
Yes, yes.
And why is that?
So I think, or rather, I felt like when I thought about that question, I wanted to focus on how I felt and how I interacted in with these artists and how I see these artists. And I think, or rather, I feel like a lot of times when we think about Flint rap, we automatically go to Bootleg or the Dayton Family, or we go to John Connor. And I think, especially with a lot of stuff that has been happening to me over the last week, everybody's so hyper focused on John Connor. And I'm like, you miss all of the other talent that is in this city, right? You know, I think about Ace Cabana, I think about Cam Howe, I think about Jada Ali, think about Matthew White, just a lot of other phenomenal artists in this city that I have had the opportunity to interview and get to know a little bit better. You know, and so when I created this list, I really wanted to focus on the here and now, especially the top 10 list. I wanted to focus on the here and now, like who is my top 10 for the here and now, who is leading this next wave or this next generation of Flint music. And so for my top 10 musically, why Connor is number one is because he's just a phenomenal artist. Like, you know, it's just recognizing that he is a phenomenal artist. And when we look to, you know, in that aspect, like who's the best of the best, he is at the top currently, you know, waiting for probably Ace Cabana to dethrone him at a later date. So that's why you see him on one list and him on not on the other.
So you mentioned the Dayton family as being a signature of rap music. Um, how would you explain the Flint rap scene right now?
It
In terms of,
is.
yeah, musical quality,
Mm,
because when you think of the Dayton family, it is just hard. It's hardcore fast rap. Like, is that still around?
yeah, so it's it's very multi-layered and diverse now. And the reason why, you know, on at least on Flint side, you see me interview a wide variety of Flint artists. Number one, to, you know, again, shine that light and give that visibility to the diversity that is Flint music in the city, right? Although we may be known for rap, you know, there's a growing pop and R&B scene. There's a growing soul and funk and jazz scene. You know what I mean? There's a growing country scene. So all of this plays a part, and they all intersect with each other, you know, because the artists here know each other. Some of them are friends. You know, they get in the studio or they meet each other and they say, "Hey, let's get on the track together." And then, you know, just magic happens like that. But yeah, that sort of hardcore street rap is still very much here. You could say in one aspect it's here, but it's repackaged in a different way. There's a term that is now being used to describe a specific flow of Flint rap called Flint rap, basically. And so this has been coined and been utilized by, again, Rio the Young OG, YNJ, King Cassius, and a lot of other guys in the city, because that has been the style of rap that has broken the glass ceiling and has allowed global audiences to get acquainted and embedded in Flint rap. And so, although it is still very much street, although it is still very much, you know, that gritty, grimy sort of rap, how the flow of it is very different. There's a different cadence, there's a different beat to go along with it. It's not structured in the same way as we hear rap music on the radio and rap music on albums. Um, there is no chorus. Um, they're just literally rapping from the start of the song to the end of it. And that has just been a sound that has been curated and is unique to Flint. But outside of that, again, like there are still people who follow the traditional modes of rap, who are bringing emerging genres of rap and pop, rap and hip hop, rap and R&B, rap and jazz and funk. Just these mergings of these different genres just create this vast landscape that is Flint rap.
So distinguish Flint rap from Detroit rap.
Ooh. How would I do that? That's a great question. I've never been asked that question before. I have to think about that a little harder. I think what distinguishes Flint rap from Detroit rap is the sort of mentality, or the what is the word I want to look for? The different kind of hustle, in a sense, right? Because we all, again, this is another one of those things where we always and have traditionally looked at Detroit, right? Like Detroit is this leader of a lot of different things. Um, and Flint, is like Detroit's little sister or cousin or something like that. That has been the narrative that has been created over time. And so one of the reasons that separates Flint rap from Detroit rap is just how people have looked at Flint. The stories that people in Flint have are, the same and yet different. There's a different way that we go about things, or as people say, to use slang language, there's a different swag, there's a different vibe that we have in Flint compared to Detroit. Although we do have crime and murder here and things of that nature, as far as community, that is very much present here, especially in the arts and culture scene. So it's we're dealing with hard things, but yet that we still have a sense of hope, and just how we go about utilizing music to explain our lifestyle and things like that. I think that's where the birth of the coin term Flint rap or Flint style of rap come from. Again, it's breaking structure, it's breaking the status quo of how you're supposed to lay bars or construct bars on a beat. You know what I mean? It's redefining what rap can sound like. And because Flint people or Flint artists have been able to do that, have been able to just rap straight on the beat and make it flow so beautifully and talk about a myriad of things in this, right? To make it rhyme and then not rhyme, or to make it have trap beats, or make it very poppy. The fact that all of these regular or stereotypical conventions are being broken, I think that is what puts us, or put Flint rap, on a bit of a higher pedestal, or what's the word I'm looking for? Causes a separation or a distinction between Detroit style of rap and Flint style of rap.
So you mentioned flow a couple of times. And one of my canned questions is, what is musical flow?
I feel like musical flow is, when that artist is able to connect with the sound. You know, when I think of the word flow in general, because that's the root word of all of this, right? Like when I think of the word flow, I think of just oh, and I had the word, don't leave me. I think about just how very loose, how very in tune, aware. I think of that synchronicity, right? That can happen when you are in flow. We think about, just go with the flow. We think about the ebb in the flow. Now that I think about the movie Hustle in Flow. And so I think, musical flow is how a artist is able to synchronize and become in tune with everything, the vibe of the recording studio, the beat maker, the producer, the beat itself, where they're in tune with who they are and can construct, lyrics or poetry, based on all of that is happening around them and inside of them. So when I think of musical flow, that's what I think about.
You've connected really well to the other flow, because it's flowing into it is a psychological phenomenon too, in that one reaches musical flow while you're in mental flow. So in your experiences, as an author, how do you get to that point of mental flow where the words kind of just flow for you? And then I want to ask, what have you observed in the musicians who you interviewed, and how did they get into mental flow?
That's hilarious because I get into mental flow at various different times of the day. It's quite hilarious. Usually when I am constructing an article or when I'm writing something, I have these sort of mood lights that add a mood. I'm playing very lo-fi hip hop, or I go on YouTube to just play some very calming meditation music. Um, so that creates a flow. Um, I usually have water or some tea or a beer that is present here, that adds to it. I have these glasses that I utilize when, so it's just a whole sort of performance piece, I guess you could say, that gets me in this mental flow. But I mean, so that's just when I want to be very structured, or when, deadlines and things are coming up and it's like, okay, I need to focus. But just like with the musical artists that I do these interviews with, right? Like they may have flow or we may have flow when we're in the shower, and the water is heating and that those lyrics come, or for me, like how to structure a narrative piece. I'm like, oh wow, that's there, or while they are out at the studio enjoying each other's company and having a drink, or passing around, a blunt of weed, or smoking weed and things of that nature, right? That's also a space where that mental musical flow comes from. Fashion, you putting on a piece of clothing, or you're putting on an outfit and you're going out, and sometimes for me, like, wow, like I want to take a photo like this, especially with them. Everything with them is very visual, right? Especially when it comes to music videos. And so, I may interview somebody, but I have my photographer there that's with me, who's taking photos, of our conversations and of them. And so when I look at these photos, that also creates a different kind of flow for me, because the camera is capturing something that visually, or in my written work, I may not be able to see. And having that supplement there, those photos there, can add extra flow to this. So, it's just all over the place, and it varies, and it can happen very spontaneously.
And in your email message, you said that the best time for you is noon or later. So flow usually happens in the afternoon for you.
Yes, flow. So uh flow happens for me, yes. You generally after like 6 o'clock, when
Oh,
like when
that's
like the sun, like when the sun is setting and it's going in the night, that for some reason is like the perfect time frame for me. I don't know what that is, but I get very moody, emotional, words start popping up, and I'm just really in that creative moment, because I don't know why. So then it goes from like sunset to evening to night. That's where all of that stuff starts to flow. I believe the reason for that is because at that time, people are sleeping and people are resting. And so there's not a lot of energy and a lot of thoughts that are bopping through the air, for me to pick up on and absorb. And so it allows my mind, and I believe this is the same way for a lot of other artists, that ability to have your mind clear enough to where you can hear the words that come through you. So I think that's another reason. And then, flow can extend at least sometimes up to 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes flow goes that long, but after that and into the morning, flow is just like, no, we're not flowing. We're sleeping, we're resting, we're relaxing, we're enjoying random YouTube videos or things of that nature, video games or what have you.
So tell me about your favorite story that you've written. Maybe one that captures like your strongest flow, or yeah, or something that you really had a hard time, or maybe an easy time writing, but or maybe a story that you're most proud of, if you could.
Oh my God, I have a couple. Oh my God. I hate questions like this. Like, what is the time? I'm like, I don't know. They're all my babies. I love them all for different reasons. Let me think. One that would encapsulate all of that. I have it. And this is a music one. The one that really like hit me and sort of shifted me journalistic wise and writing wise was the article that I did on King Cassius. Um, I love that article because so my background is not in journalism, as we both know now. My background is narrative storytelling, is being an author, is writing stories. And so to come from that world and to come into the world of journalism was a bit of a challenge because everything was very structured. And so while I could tell stories, I feel like I really couldn't tell stories in a way that was natural to me. And so I was at a friend's house in Lansing and I saw this GQ article on Megan Thee Stallion, and I read it and I was like, oh my God, like it read like a story. And I said, oh my God, that's how I write. That's how I want to write. And I said, well, if they're doing this in GQ, why can I do this here in Flint at Flintside? And so I asked my editor, I said, hey, can I write like this? Can I bring my storytelling, my first person perspective, to this? And he said, yeah, go for it. And so with that article, you see me describe, we're in this building. He's drinking coffee. I'm drinking coffee. I'm describing how he looks, what he's wearing. I'm describing how I'm feeling in relation to what it is that he's saying. And so it's a story at this point, and with greater detail and greater voice, not just his voice, but my voice as well. And crafting that article was so much fun. Like it was like I was back writing a book again and just like just click, 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 click. And like the freedom to do that is what caused or created that mental flow, the freedom to just be able to really tell a story. Who is this person? Why did this person get into music? Why is this person dressing like this? When I ask a particular question, how does their body language shift? How does their voice incline or decline? Is there excitement when I ask a particular question or when they answer a particular question? So all of these things, created that flow, created that article, and has created a couple other articles since then, just that freedom to be able to produce that. So definitely King Cash's article is what started that shift in and more focus on narrative driven writing for me with Flintside and music journalism.
So, well, I haven't read that article. I'm going to right after I interview here. But what attracted me to interview Shemi is that is your same narrative approach to that article, because you describe what he looked at like, the hat he was wearing, the fact that he had something that said Flint versus everybody. And so it reminded me of really rich, detailed radio journalism. And you were painting a picture um, of this interview. And
Yes.
it was so wonderful to read. But it brings me back to, I guess, my very last question, and it's back to the top 10 best rappers. So King Cassius is your second person listed here on 10 best rappers, along with, and you'll have to apologize for this, but GS The Dream, Shemi, Cam
Yes.
Howe, Cameron Tyler, Jade Ali, Belly Beretta, Jeff, is it Sky?
Yes. Jeff Sky.
Okay.
Yes.
JB Smoke.
Yes. JB
Okay.
Smokes. Yes.
So, I want to say that this is a young generation
Yes.
of rappers.
Mhm.
And all these individuals, what would you say? I mean, why are they here? These 10. They're young, they have a style to them, but what else?
They represent, as I said before, they represent, and not just them, right? I could have gave you a top 20. Um, not just them, but well, whoop, backtrack. They represent Flint 2.0. They represent the next generation, the next wave. They represent what is possible for people in the city. Because when I think about the broader spectrum, right, of Flint, right, like Flint has a history. When we think about the news perspective, like it has a terrible news history. The how residents feel in the city is very demoralized, right? We think about GM leaving, we think about what that did, we think about the water crisis and all of the stuff that happened with that. Just so many, this is a food desert, this is a news desert. There's so many different things, unemployment, the lack of sustainable jobs, the lack of green food and green spaces. We think about all of that and what that does to a people, what that does to community, and what that has done generationally, right? And now you have these young people, now you have music, now you have art and culture that is being driven, that is changing the narrative and the dynamic of this city, that is saying, hey, we are more than just these terrible things that are happening in the city, right? And not only are we more than that, we're sharing our stories and adding our stories and our voices to this narrative through music or through any other creative venture that they want to pursue and do, which they are. Some of them are their own business owners. They sell clothing, they're parents. They fall in and out of love. They take care of loved ones and relatives. There's so many nuances that go into who they are and what they represent for the city. I think about, again, King Cassius, is a father, to a daughter, and he loves his daughter very, very much, and everything that he does is for her daughter. You mentioned the Shimmy article, which is a result of me reading that GQ article and bringing that style, as you said. But Shimmy as well is also a parent, and is white at that, right? So his experiences are drastically different than others, but yet similar because he grew up in Flint and he was ripping and running the streets. So it is that collective narrative of you can be from this background, you can be weird and eclectic, you can be street or hood, you can be white, you can be a woman. With Jade Ali and JB Smokes, those are both two very prominent women here in rap and hip hop. You think about that. You think about to what it means to be queer. You know, even though he's not a rap artist, Farillo Star, which is on the top 10 list in general, he's our biggest LGBTQ plus pop star in the city. And so, when I look at all of them in totality, I'm forgetting Cameron Tyler. Cameron Tyler is Jamaican, so he's Jamaican, and Cam Howe is biracial. He's Irish, Italian, and Black. So all of these different narratives play into music, play into the changing narrative of what is possible from people from a diverse and very nuanced background. And so that's why that list is what it is and who they represent, in addition to just their musical flow and the kind of music that they create.
So this is exactly what I needed, was an education on the last, I guess, few years, or the 2.0 of Flint Rap Stars, because what attracted me to Breed and Bootleg, MC Breed and Ira Bootleg Dorsey, is that I'm the same age as them, and so I've been away from Flint for a generation or so. So it is so wonderful to learn about all these new names, and hopefully I'll be more accustomed to who they are, and I'm going to search for all of them, because I really want to know about, gosh, what is Flint rap music, because I feel that is so special, and I'm so excited that this is happening, and that the Midwestern genre is getting even more defined locally. Yes. But is there anything, Xzavier, that you want to chat about that relates to flow in Flint Town? You have given me so much information. I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I start?
I guess I would say, first and foremost that, thank you. Thank you for wanting to, catalog and chronicle, what is happening here in the city, because, in my opinion, when we look at you, there's been gaps, right? So we look at, MC Breed and the Dayton Family and Bootleg, right? And then so there was that. And then we look at John Connor, and there was that. And now we're in this. And it's not just one or two people, it's a plethora of people this time. Like there's so much incredible diversity this time that did not happen, within the last couple decades. And that to me, signifies that things are changing, and what is possible, especially now as social media and the internet is a mega thing at this point, is a part of our daily lives. Like the fact that, you know, people all across the world have access to Flint in ways that they didn't when MC Breed and Bootleg was there, and when John Connor, even though the internet was around when John Connor, but it wasn't what it is now. And so, to the fact that all of that can happen and coalesce, and people can get access to Flint music and say, wow, they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're, oh my, like, I just thought Flint was just this homogenous monoculture, place. And you recognize that no, it is vast. It is full of so much different stuff, and so many different things is happening. So, definitely thank you for that, for continuing to share the stories of so many amazing people in the city. So thank you for that. I don't think I have anything else to add, other than thank you for following my work. Thank you for being a fan. I really, listen, I live in a sort of my own bubble. Like I go and I interview people, and I'm like, yeah, and I put it on social media, and I sit here and do the articles, so it's a very bubbled experience. So I don't know what the community says about me or who's watching what, until somebody like you comes along and says, well, I just read that article, and I'm like, really? Like, and just to do my research on you and who you are and the amazing things that you're doing, I'm like, somebody that amazing is reading my work. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. That's so cool. So I'm insanely appreciative, insanely appreciative.
Okay, so we are going to keep in touch, and
Yes.
know that, I am probably one of your top 10 top fans. So
Thank you.
yeah, and so I'm sure I'm going to have questions because the last point you mentioned, the role of media technology and education. I started talking a little bit about education and the I guess the interweaving of
Mhm.
education and music in Flint. But no, that's a great point. Is the influence of social media and what it's done. And it is playing such a prominent role in what the Flint rap scene is becoming. And but I'm going to also wait to hear for Ace Cabana's new new
Yes,
album,
yes,
Moonwater. So I'm gonna
yes.
do that
Please,
too.
you're
That
not gonna be
yeah.
disappointed.
Yes, thank you so much for
Oh,
all of this.
I have one last quick question.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
what? So I'm very excited about this, and I don't know where you are in the process of this. And I did sign a release agreement and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, yes.
What am I allowed to share? Or and hold excitement about, and what should I just be like? All right, I don't need to talk about none of that because I don't want to, step on any boundaries or anything of that nature.
Oh, about this book?
Yes.
Oh, you can talk about it. It'll give me more fuel to
Okay.
get it done.
Okay.
Because I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, I've got to do it. I've got to sit down and I've got to focus. I can do this. So I've got to
Yes, you
get into
can.
yes, I'm gonna get into the flow. I'm going to, light my candles. Um,
Yes, let your candles burn your sage or your Palo Santo or your
yes,
incense. Get all of
yes,
that.
yes. I love it. I love it. But no, please share.
Okay, thank you. Because
Yeah.
I was like, I read the release agreement and I was like, okay, I don't want to say too much. I don't know, where you're at in that process. I don't know what Wayne State or Michigan State is has in this. So, okay, because my mind was I wanted to, just say, hey, I got an amazing opportunity to talk about Flynn and who y'all are, and please be on the lookout for it, at a later date. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share.
Hey, you know what? I would love that.
Okay,
So,
listen. I will tag you in it if you want. I will tag you in that post.
okay, okay. I would appreciate it. Any help.
I will
But
definitely do that. And
yes.
listen, since one, you are a resident of Flint, and two, you are writing this book. If you would like to sit down for an interview with me to get your story up on Flint's side, let me know. I
Okay,
will I
okay.
will move everything out of my schedule to have that conversation with
Oh
you.
my goodness, you are putting the pressure. Thank you so much. You know what? Let me get to what 30,000 words or so
Okay.
because I have in the book, and then I'll feel better.
Okay.
But this is giving me a roadmap, a huge roadmap. I can't even tell you
I'm glad.
where the last few chapters are going to move. So you're helping me with my flow diagram. So
Yes.
take care and so nice meeting you.
Likewise.
And,
Likewise. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
yeah, you too.
Bye bye.